Why do people trust those who criticize them? The bitter truth method, honest enemy effect. In our lives, we constantly seek approval, wanting to be praised and supported. When someone does this, we usually reciprocate with sympathy and trust. But what if there's a paradoxical phenomenon where people begin to trust you much more after you've told them something unpleasant, something that grates on the ears but is pure truth? This sounds counterintuitive. We avoid criticism, we're afraid to voice it, but sometimes it is precisely that which becomes the key to profound trust. We will talk about the bitter truth method or the honest enemy effect, why people value sincerity even when it causes discomfort. This understanding can become a powerful tool for building genuine, not superficial, relationships. This is not about being rude or cruel, but about a deep understanding of human psychology and the value of authenticity. In the first part, we touched upon the paradoxical phenomenon, why people begin to trust you more after you've told them something unpleasant yet truthful. Now we will delve into the psychological principles that underpin this astonishing effect, known as the bitter truth method or the honest enemy effect. This is not manipulation, not an attempt to cause harm or exploit someone's weaknesses, but a skillful use of the natural, deeply ingrained reactions of the human brain to authenticity, sincerity, and competence. Firstly, it's the scarcity of sincerity and authenticity. In the modern world, where social interactions are often filled with a desire to please, avoid conflicts, or be overly polite, genuine, even if harsh, honesty becomes a rare and valuable commodity. Many tend to use white or social lies to downplay problems or to avoid sensitive topics to maintain harmony or their own comfort. In such an environment, a person who dares to speak the truth that others avoid uttering instantly stands out. They are perceived as someone with a high degree of integrity, courage, and reliability. People instinctively value what is scarce, and sincerity, especially when it carries a certain social risk, is precisely such a scarce resource. Imagine a typical office environment, for example, in a large corporation in Chicago, where everyone tries to avoid sensitive issues, not to voice criticism directly, and to maintain the appearance of complete agreement, even if a project is heading in the wrong direction. And then, at a meeting where everyone praises a brilliant idea, someone dares to voice an unpleasant but important truth. I understand the enthusiasm, but this idea is unviable because it contradicts the fundamental principles of data privacy we agreed upon and could lead to lawsuits. This instantly commands respect for them, even if their words cause discomfort or even momentary dissatisfaction. They become the most respected, albeit uncomfortable, voice in the room because they demonstrated integrity and a willingness to take a social risk for the sake of truth. Secondly, it's perceived expertise and competence. A person who is able to see and articulate an unpleasant truth or a mistake that others either don't notice or are afraid to voice is perceived as more perceptive, knowledgeable, and competent. It's as if they see what is hidden from others, what lies beneath the surface, and this instantly elevates their authority. When you point out a real, hidden flaw or problem, you demonstrate a deep understanding of the situation, which automatically inspires trust in your opinion, even if that opinion is unwelcome. Recall an experienced doctor in an American clinic. If a patient comes in with symptoms and the doctor, after reviewing the tests, calmly and directly communicates a difficult diagnosis, for example, the need for serious surgery or long-term treatment, while clearly explaining the reasons and the action plan, such a doctor inspires much more trust than one who tries to pacify the patient with excessive optimism or vague promises. Why? Because their ability to see the bitter truth and articulate it, despite its unpleasantness, demonstrates their competence and knowledge. They don't hide. They open one's eyes to reality, and this makes them a reliable and authoritative source. Thirdly, it's the confirmation of one's own doubts. We often have internal, deeply hidden doubts about ourselves, our ideas, our actions, or the current situation. We are afraid to voice them, fearing that it will look like weakness, insecurity, or a mistake. When someone else, even if in a critical or harsh manner, voices these same doubts, it serves as their unwitting confirmation. The person feels, finally, someone understands. They see the same thing I do, and they're not afraid to say it. This creates a powerful emotional and psychological connection, a sense of shared understanding, and also increases trust in the person who articulated the hidden truth. For example, when everyone at a startup in Silicon Valley praises a new product idea that looks brilliant on paper, but subconsciously many are worried about its fundamental flaw, e.g., inability to scale or too high production cost, and one person dares to point out this specific flaw that was bothering many, they become the most respected, albeit uncomfortable, voice. They articulated what everyone was thinking but afraid to say. This not only relieves collective tension but also instantly boosts their authority because they demonstrated courage and perceptiveness. Fourthly, it's the contrast effect. After you have uttered the bitter truth, any subsequent support, compliment, or even just a neutral positive statement from you will be perceived with much greater value, weight, and sincerity. People will know that you are giving a compliment not out of politeness or a desire to please, but because you genuinely believe it. This creates a powerful sense of your objectivity and impartiality. If, for example, you first pointed out a serious mistake in a colleague's report and then sincerely praised them for their diligent data collection or for the originality of their approach to solving another part of the task, your compliment will be received with much greater trust and gratitude. They will understand that your praise is deserved because you are not afraid to criticize when necessary. This contrast between the bitter truth and sincere praise enhances the positive perception of your words. All these principles are based on you demonstrating authenticity, competence, and a willingness to take a social risk for the sake of truth. This automatically elevates your status in the eyes of others as they see you as someone trustworthy even if your words are not always pleasant. You become a source of reliable information, and this is most valuable in conditions of constant uncertainty. In the next, concluding part, we will move on to more specific tactics built on these principles, turning them into the bitter truth method that does not destroy but builds trust and relationships. In the first part, we touched upon the paradox of trusting criticism, and in the second, we delved into the psychological principles explaining this phenomenon, the scarcity of sincerity, perceived competence, confirmation of one's own doubts, and the contrast effect. Now, we will move on to more specific tactics built on these principles, transforming the bitter truth into a method that does not destroy but builds trust and relationships. These tactics are not manipulation or a way to cause harm. They are an ethical use of the knowledge of human psychology aimed at improvement, not suppression. Firstly, it's strategic specificity. Your criticism should be as concrete as possible and focused on behavior, actions, or facts rather than on the person. For example, instead of "you are always late, you are irresponsible," a personal accusation that triggers defensiveness, say, "Today you were 15 minutes late for the meeting, which caused a delay in the discussion. This is important to me because we lost time and couldn't cover all the issues, fact plus consequence." The goal is not to humiliate, but to point out a problem for improvement, which immediately changes the reaction from resentment to understanding. Secondly, choosing the right time and place. The bitter truth is best delivered privately, not publicly. This demonstrates respect for the person and concern for their reputation. For example, if you see a colleague at a meeting in New York making a gross mistake or saying something inaccurate, it's better to talk to them about it after the meeting in a private setting, rather than correcting them in front of everyone. Public criticism causes shame and defensiveness, while a private conversation opens the door to acceptance. Thirdly, focus on the goal of improvement, not condemnation. Your motivation should be aimed at helping and growing the person, not at humiliating them or elevating yourself. Use phrases like, "I'm telling you this because I believe in your potential and want you to succeed. I see this problem and I'm ready to help you solve it. My goal is to help you become even better." This changes the perception of criticism from an attack to support. For example, a sports team coach in Texas who tells a talented young athlete, "You are incredibly talented, but your technique is faltering. If we don't fix this now, you will never reach the next level. I'm willing to work with you every day to change this." This is a tough but motivating truth spoken out of care. Fourthly, combining with validation of positive aspects. After delivering the bitter truth, it's always important to acknowledge the person's strengths or efforts. This shows your objectivity and impartiality. For example, "I appreciate your work on the project. You did most of the research very well, but there's a critical point here that needs to be corrected for the project to be successful." This softens the blow, shows that you see not only flaws but also merits, and makes the person more receptive to criticism. Fifthly, willingness to receive feedback. If you criticize, be prepared that you might also be criticized in return. Your openness to feedback will show your sincerity, willingness to dialogue, and lack of arrogance. This will strengthen trust, as the person will see that you do not consider yourself infallible. All these tactics transform criticism into an act of building trust, not destruction. They utilize a person's intrinsic drive for perfection and respect, directing their energy towards correcting mistakes and growth. In conclusion, we emphasize that the bitter truth method is not a way to cause pain or manipulate, but a powerful tool for building genuine trust and deep relationships. It is a valuable skill that allows you to be honest, even when it's difficult, and thereby earn respect that cannot be bought with flattery. True strength here is manifested not in aggression, but in the ability to calmly and accurately point out flaws because you value the person enough to be honest with them. This allows you not only to be honest, but also to become a person whose opinion is valued and whose words are trusted because they are always truthful. Consider how you can implement the principles of the bitter truth in your daily life, at work, in the family, in communication with friends. This will allow you not only to build stronger, deeper relationships based on sincerity, but also to become a person who is not afraid to speak the truth and who is respected for it.